Welcome to the Pennsylvania Trolley Museum Zoom series, Trolleyology. My name is Kristen Fredrickson. I'm the Assistant Manager of Visitor Experience here at the Trolley Museum. Thank you so much for joining us today, and welcome back to all of you who have joined us before. This virtual series features programs on Pennsylvania transit history and topics on our trolley collection that you can experience from home. And we're going to continue these programs regularly. In fact, I've been working to schedule some programs through May and June. So stay tuned to our website to learn all about the upcoming programs. If you have a show that fits the museum mission, so that would be anything about Pennsylvania or the trolley era or cities where our streetcars come from, please let me know. You can find my email in your confirmation that you got tonight, or the reminder email for this program. And if you have a program that doesn't quite fit those guidelines, reach out anyway. Sometimes we're looking for programs and, we can go do something else interesting. So see the full list of upcoming programs at patrolley.org, which I will share in the chat box in just a few minutes. And I want to extend a very special thank you to those of you who donated when you registered for tonight's program, and those who have made other donations through our website. We really, really appreciate your support of our virtual programs. Now, for those of you who might be new to the Trolley Museum, we were established in 1954 as the Arden Electric Railway by a group of trolley enthusiasts called the Pittsburgh Electric Railway Club. And the museum opened to visitors a few years later in 1963, and is actually located along the former interurban route between Pittsburgh and Washington, PA. We've got nearly 50 trolleys and electric railway cars here, about 20 of which operate, and about 30,000 visitors per year take the 4-mile scenic ride at the museum. And we just had an awesome couple of weekends of bunny trolley. Happy to announce that we had more than 3,800 visitors for our bunny trolley weekend. So that was very, very exciting. I hope you guys can come visit us sometime this season. Now, coming up of interest to this crowd, we do have the West Penn Trolley Meet, June 3rd and 4th. Navigate to the special events section on our website and you'll see it there. We actually have our registration up now. And on Sunday, we're going to take a tour of Port Authority's South Hills Village Rail Center. So that's a separate registration. And on June 4th and 5th, we'll actually have our Anything on Wheels event. So that'll feature antique cars and trucks, vintage vehicles, literally anything on wheels. And registration for that is also online. And tonight's presenter, Steve Barry, will be leading a night photo shoot at the museum on Saturday, June 4th. So no separate registration needed for that, but you can kind of see some of the examples and my background, his background, and then this photo here on the left. And if you've been tuning into these programs and you're anywhere near Pittsburgh, this Saturday, our new operator class starts. It'll be the next 4 Saturdays. If you can't come to all of them, that's okay. We can work with that. But if you've ever imagined yourself behind the controls of a streetcar, definitely reach out. You can message me in the chat or send me an email, and I'll get you the information on how to be a new operator. And the next thing I wanted to highlight before we get started tonight is progress on our new Welcome and Education Center. It's coming along. We've laid the track for Trolley Street, and the brick paving should start this summer along with construction on the building. So to learn more or donate to our capital campaign, you can visit patrolley.org/support, which I'll also put in the chat in a few minutes. All right, and now I would like to introduce today's presenter, Steve Barry. Steve has been with Railfan and Railroad magazine since 1996, and he's been the editor since 1998. He's from South Jersey, and he's been doing photography for about 40 years now. Without further ado, Steve, take it away.
Well, thank you. Let's see. Tonight, I'm going to be, I said, like Kristen said, it's been about 40 years I've been doing this, and a lot of that has been spent in Philadelphia. And tonight, we're going to see some of the stuff that I've shot in Philly over the years. I started gathering the photos together because I hit a point where I've taken all these slides over the years and digital photos more recently. I'm like, well, what am I going to do with all these? So I've started to assemble them into books. I did one on South Jersey's railroads last year, And my second one of these is going to be Philadelphia Commuter Rails, which is in the works right now. I'm hoping to have it out within the next month and a half or so, hopefully in time for the West Penn meet out there at the museum. It's going to cover everything from heavy rail to the streetcars to the Broad Street subway and the Market-Frankford L and everything in Philadelphia, Norristown high-speed line. Tonight, I'm going to show the stuff that's not the heavy rail. We're going to put the heavy rail aside for tonight and just do basically the traction elevated stuff. So we're going to start off on the Broad Street subway, which, as the name implies, runs underneath Broad Street from Center City, actually from the stadium area through Center City up to Fern Rock. Fern Rock is the only place the subway is above ground. And here we see a set of cars coming out of the subway tunnel at Fern Rock. These are South Broad Street cars coming out of the tunnel. And the historic cars, I just barely caught the tail end of them. They vanished pretty quickly after I started shooting in Philadelphia. And I'll also tell you, I am not the biggest of the techno geeks. I'm basically a photographer. I see something I like, I take a picture of it. The technical stuff, the book will have some of it in there when these cars were built, things like that. But it's not my strong suit, let's put it that way. Here we are in Fern Rock. Here's one of the locomotives they use to switch the Fern Rock shop. In the background, you see some of the newer cars. You'll see more of those in a couple of seconds here. Now, fortunately, a couple of times I was up here at the Fern Rock shop in the 80s. The employees are pretty friendly, and they saw us taking pictures and actually invited us down into the yard, despite all the third rail everywhere. But we were careful, and they let us wander around. It's pretty cool, actually. Here we are underground. Most of the L runs underground. This goes back to my first introduction to the subway and actually to Philadelphia Transit in general. Fan trips. Fan trips have always been a big part of what I've done in Philadelphia. It's the easiest way to get around the city and get a lot of photos. And this is from a fan trip in April 1984. Some of the older cars out. And this is actually at the Allegheny Avenue station, according to. Another thing you'll know about me is I'm famous for my notes. I don't take any. So I've had to go back and dig around and ask on Facebook and things like that. Say, where the heck was I when I took these shots? And Facebook's been pretty helpful for that. This one's pretty obvious. I'm at the Walnut Locust station. This is when the historic cars were out on a fan trip in 1984. This is also at Walnut Street. And we're back up at Fern Rock again with a historic train. Like I said, the employees would sometimes let us wander down into the yard. It was pretty impressive. Here are some of the new cars. You'll notice on the far right there's 2 tracks with Reading Blue liners on it. The Reading's commuter line skirts the east end of the shop complex. And there is a connection. They could get equipment from the Reading up into the Fern Rock yard. Train coming out through the shop complex here. I went back up to Fern Rock just a couple of weeks ago. Got some fresh photos. A couple of those will make it into the book. I haven't got them into the slideshow here at this point, however. Moving over to the Market-Frankford subway elevator, we're at 69th Street here. And this is in 1981. And this was my real introduction to Philly Transit. In 1981, the Electric Railroaders Association had its convention in Philadelphia over the July 4th holiday. 3 days of Philly electric stuff. And a lot of the stuff I have here is from that weekend. This is what the shop looked like back in 1981, full of the Almond Joy cars, so-called because the bumps on the roof sort of reminded folks of the candy bar that has the bumps on top of the chocolate, on top of the coconut. Here we see a L car at 69th Street in Upper Darby. That's the terminal in the background. It's on the loop here. One of those shots where I'll eventually figure out where I was. This is on the Frankfurt side. The line goes east-west, basically following Market Street from 69th Street through Center City. Then it turns north and northeast. This is on the north-northeast part of the line, heading out to Frankfurt, Bridge Street. This is a view from the Ben Franklin Bridge. This train has just left the Spring Garden station, heading towards Center City. Patco would run in that space between the fences on the lower level there, across the Ben Franklin Bridge. We're back on the Market Street side of things here. This is at 46th Street. And this is the Provident Mutual Insurance Company building. It was actually, this view is from 1998. This building was actually closed in 1983 and sat vacant. It's now being repurposed. This is the far north end of the line. Train ready to come out of the yard and head into Center City. And we're at, sure which station this is. Once again, my famous note-taking. But this is up on the Frankfurt section of the line. This is approaching Spring Garden, another set of Almond Joy cars. And this is under Center City in the tunnel. We are at 2nd Street for this shot here. Here's the new cars. This is above Market Street. We got the Frankfurt L up on the sign on the building there. The new cars only have one long bump, so they're not as stylish as the Almond Joys were. This part of the line is really cool because a lot of it lines right up with Center City. In fact, if you look carefully, right down the tracks, down low, dead center, above the rail, that's City Hall, barely sticking up down there. Out at 69th Street, they have the shops. This is inside the shop. And once again, we're back above Market Street here. This is where the line turns and enters the tunnel under Center City. Market Street would go straight ahead here. That road that fades off at the right center there goes straight out. That's Market Street continuing on. The line will curve, enter the tunnel, and then actually come back underneath Market Street to go through Center City. And the skyline's pretty impressive at night and also at sunset. This is 52nd Street. 52nd and Market. And just before the sun sets, it's got a little bit of a golden glow off the buildings in Center City. We're back on the line, the part of the line that goes up northeast out of Center City. This is at the Huntington station. This is in 2019. And this view here is, that's the Burke station in the distance there, and the train's approaching New York Dolphin with the Ben Franklin Bridge in the background. This is also the York Dolphin station. Going back out to 69th Street, this is from that July 4th ERA convention back in 1981. The yard still had the St. Louis cars and Brill cars that served the lines out to Sharon Hill and Media. And just after I got interested in the traction scene in Philadelphia, these cars vanished. The big event in 81 was my best look at them, and I really didn't get to see a whole lot more of them before they were gone. I'm trying to find my notes here, and here we go. These are two master units built by J.G. Brill in 1932. And this is at 69th Street. This is from that 1981 weekend. I'm actually looking at a PDF of the book on my other computer. That's what my notes are for tonight's show. Streamliner car number 18 from the St. Louis Car Company at 69th Street. And this is at Drexel Hill Junction, where the lines to Media and Sharon Hill split after coming out of 69th Street. This is a fan trip with the center door car, 73. Notice the mini Media motel on the right. You'll see that again in a few slides, looking a little bit different. Out at Drexel line, Master Unit 78. And a couple of cars passing. This is during that ERA fan trip. I still need to track down the location this was taken at. And this is from the fan trip. We got a three-way meet going on here. This is what was called the Beverly Hills Station. I believe the name has changed since then. This is where the two lines are still combined coming out of 69th Street. It's passing over the Newtown Square branch of the Pennsylvania Railroad. The rail here is all gone now. And same bridge, different angle. This is in Smedley Park in Springfield. This has changed quite a bit too over the years. And we're in downtown Media for this view here of the St. Louis Car Company Streamliner. I didn't get a chance to see many of the maroon cars. Most of them were orange by the time I got into the city. This is from November of 81. This is on a fan trip, the old and new, the center door car being the old. The Kawasaki car on the left wasn't in regular service yet. It was out for the fan trip. And here's their line car, D39. This was out on a fan trip as well. I've run a few charters myself on behalf of the Wilmington chapter of the NRHS, and I've run 28 Super Saturday trips on the day before the Super Bowl, plus a handful of others. So I probably run about 40 charters over on SEPTA. And back in the day, they would let us actually charter work equipment, which we did on this day here. This is the Media and Sharon Hill shops, also at 69th Street. Or adjacent to 69th Street Terminal. I believe it's got a different name. And here we have a car approaching Media. The line in the Media is single track. So a car can't come out of town until a car goes into town. And you see Media is proud of their trolleys. They got the trolley on the banner on the pole there. Remember that Media Mini Motel? It's since been rechristened. It's now Media's Trolley Stop Motel, and it has the best rates, according to the sign. Another view of the Trolley Stop Motel. And now we're on the Sharon Hill line. This is actually coming into the Sharon Hill station. The line makes a big dip to get underneath the former Baltimore and Ohio main line that crosses on a bridge you see in the background there. This is at Clifton, Alden. This is also on the Sharon Hill part of the route. And both the Media and Sharon Hill lines cross over Darby Creek. Here we see our work car out on a charter. This is at Clifton Alden Station. A car going to Sharon Hill with a former Pennsylvania Railroad Silverliner overhead. The Silverliner is actually out on a fan trip and was posed on the bridge here for this photo. And this is the same bridge, same place. That's the ex-Pennsy Clifton Alden station up there on the right. End of the line in Sharon Hill. This is one of the Friends of Philadelphia Trolleys charters. And once again at Sharon Hill, you can tell it's a charter because you got all the folks with cameras wearing their safety vests out on the hillside here getting pictures. Coming back in from Sharon Hill. This car is heading to Sharon Hill. It's going through the S-curve in Collingdale. Both the Media and Sharon Hill lines are a combination of some street running, some private right-of-way. A few years ago, SEPTA wrapped one of the Kawasaki cars into the Philadelphia and Westchester Traction Company to celebrate 100 years of streetcar service to Media. Here it is at Smedley Park. You saw that a little bit earlier. Between that earlier shot in 1981 and this shot here in 2013, they've added a road bridge parallel to the railroad bridge here, so we have a nice track level view of the car. And here we are in downtown Media, going past the theater. And here you see that dip underneath the old B&O, now the CSX Philadelphia subdivision. Car 101, the wrapped car coming out of Sharon Hill with another Kawasaki up on the hill back in the Sharon Hill station in the background. Downtown media again. This is in front of the PNC Bank Castle downtown. And this is at the Springfield station. Heading over to the Norristown high-speed line. Fortunately, the Bullet cars and Stratford cars hung on here for a lot longer than the Brills and the St. Louis cars did on the other Red Arrow lines. So I was able to get quite a few shots of the Bullets and Stratford cars. Here we see a Bullet coming underneath the Pennsylvania Turnpike. And this scene is from 1983. The Bullet cars hung on long enough to get the Scepter red, white, and blue. And here we see a Bullet car coming underneath the former Pennsylvania Railroad main line to Harrisburg and beyond at Radnor. The Norristown High Speed Line Radnor Station is just behind me. The Pennsylvania Railroad Radnor Station is off to the left. Of course, this was one time the Philadelphia and Western, the P&W. Here we see two Bullet cars meeting each other. This is also at Radnor. This is Villanova Junction. Initially, the P&W, when it was built, its main line went to Strafford, and this is where and then they built a branch to Norristown. The main line to Strafford would have been this flat spot here you see in the foreground left. The line would have gone straight ahead and off to Strafford. But after they added the branch to Norristown, the branch line became far more popular than the main line did. So eventually the Strafford line was abandoned and the line of Norristown became the main line. This is the view from a Bullet. This is at the Wynwood Road Station. This is also at Wynwood Road, I believe. I just gotta verify these before I get the book printed. Like I said, my note taking is legendary for how bad it is. We're back at Villanova Junction here. We're standing on the old line that went to Strafford in this view here. This car is actually going away from us, coming from Norristown, swinging from what was the Norristown branch onto the main line into Upper Darby. This was during that 1981 ERA convention. We're at the Bryn Mawr station here, and one of the activities they did was they did a night run with two Bullets from 69th Street up to Norristown. And the return trip was nonstop, and it was quite the trip. These cars had no air conditioning. It was a hot July night. Wind is wide open. All the sounds and sparks you get from third rail. It was just an incredible ride. Norristown to 69th Street nonstop. I think we did it in 18 minutes. It was pretty impressive. And here we see a Bullet car. And in the background is a car that SEPTA acquired from the Chicago Transit Authority. And we'll get more of those here in just a minute or two. This is the substation that is located not far from the, this is in Havertown. not far from the Beechwood Brookline high-speed line station on a snowy day. And one of the Stratford cars, a little boxier than the Bullets. This is at Bryn Mawr. And Stratford cars in two different paint schemes. And we got a Stratford car at Radnor, the Penn Z in the background. And here is a Stratford car that has just left Norristown. It's crossed over the Schuylkill River on the big bridge. That's Norristown on the hill in the background. And the train, the 166 here is approaching the Bridgeport station. And here we have a Stratford car at Bryn Mawr going away, heading towards 69th Street. The Stratford cars were largely overlooked, I guess, by rail fans. The Bullets just overshadowed them. Everybody liked Bullets. Nobody. The Stratford cars were, that's actually a shame because they were cool cars too. Here we have a Bullet and Stratford car passing each other. Once again, this is from that classic 1981 ERA convention. And this is at Villanova. And Bullets and Stratfords again. And this is at Radnor. And Stratford cars coming into Bryn Mawr. The Bullets were numbered in the 200 series, but they had this large single-digit mounted center up on the roof. You see the 4 there. This would be car 204. Kept things simple. Once again, from that night run up to Norristown during the ERA convention, a stop at Bryn Mawr. And double-headed Bullets. Oops, seen that one already before. Here's the that run to Norristown. This is up at the old Art Deco Norristown terminal that was built in the 1930s, but was closed in 1989. The tracks were truncated here by a couple of blocks to the new Norristown Transportation Center that was shared with the heavy rail X-Reading line. With the Stratford cars getting old, SETA needed to add to the fleet, so they picked up a handful of cars from Chicago Transit Authority. Here you see a set of those CTA cars going by a Bullet. And the CTA cars up at Norristown. And there's that substation again. This is from the Beechwood Brookline station. at least one set of the Chicago cars came in the CTA green. At least another set came obviously in the CTA red, white, and blue. I forget how many sets they had. The bullets had to be pulled out of service though, and that left them short of cars again. So they brought over a couple of sets of Almond Joy cars off the Market-Frankford line and ran them on the Norristown high-speed line. So here we see a set of Almond Joys with a set of Chicago cars going by. And once again, thank goodness for fan trips, because the Philadelphia chapter ran so many great fan trips. They even ran a CTA car fan trip out on the Norristown line. They ran an Almond Joy fan trip on the Norristown line. Great way to get a lot of photos and a lot of meets and all kind of cool stuff. Another view with Almond Joy's meeting CTA cars. And here's a set of Almond Joys crossing over the Schuylkill, coming out of Norristown.
There's a few comments in the chat about the regaging of these cars for this line.
Yes, the Almond Joys did need to be regaged. I believe they put trucks they got from Path underneath of them.
That's what someone said. Line. Yeah, that's what one of the comments was.
Yeah. And of course, now we have the N5 cars on the Norristown high-speed line. Here we are at the shop adjacent to 69th Street. This is the employee platform at the shop. It's probably Bill Monahan on the platform banging on the door saying, "Let me in." Here we are at Bryn Mawr, and they had a track project going on, and the line from here going off in the distance off to the left was single track. The track at the far left on the very edge of the photo here was shut down for track work. So a single track from here up to the next crossover. And what we have here is a fellow who was actually, for all intents and purposes, running a block limit station. That's his little tower there he's sitting on over on the far right with his stop sign. No car can go past until he says it can onto the single track. I see controlled movements on and off the line here. This is at Bridgeport. Norristown's in the background. N5 car just coming off the Schuylkill River Bridge. And here's a view of the bridge. And coming into Villanova on a snowy day. In the book, if you choose to get it, you will find dates for all these photos. I don't have all the dates immediately in front of me. This is at Ardmore. And this is coming off the Schuylkill River Bridge into Bridgeport. And another view of the bridge with Norristown in the background. And this is up at the Norristown terminal. And this is from the Norristown side, looking back towards Bridgeport. And once again, we're at the Beechwood Brookline station, where the substation is. Ardmore Avenue. And Radnor. A little bit of a meet here. We cheated. This is a fan trip. We were actually riding the car 137 on the left. We unloaded at the Radnor station. Our car backed out next to the milepost there, and then we just waited for the next Norristown bound car to come by and pass on the right so we could get the meet shot. Nice thing about fan trips is you can cheat. Boy, this scene has really changed over the last decade. This is at Villanova. Those buildings weren't there 10 years ago. But this is all, I think, new dorms for Villanova that popped up. Makes for quite an impressive backdrop. Now we're going over to the city division, the streetcars. Here we see one of the cars in the Gulf oil paint scheme. So-called because the orange with blue and white were the same colors that Gulf Oil used. Still uses, I guess. I've got to figure out which car barn this is. I think it's Luzerne, but I'm not positive. That's one of my...
Someone said Woodland Depot before 1975 from George Gula.
This is before, no, it can't be before 75. I wasn't shooting before 75.
Oh, okay. Well, he did say Woodland.
Yeah. If it's Woodland, that solves that. That's good. That's my second choice, was Woodland. By the time I got to shooting the streetcars in '81, it was still all PCCs in Philadelphia, but a lot of the interesting paint schemes were going away. This is the Bicentennial paint scheme that was applied for the '76 Bicentennial. I didn't get many of these in service. And I got very few of the cars in the green in service. Like you can count them on two fingers. I think I got two of them. Most, by the time I was shooting, were in the standard set of white with the red and blue striping. This is up at the Olney Transportation Center, north end of Route 6. And here we see car 2168, which we had a mighty fine Trolleyology show on a few weeks ago, which is now preserved down in Baltimore. This is coming underneath the Reading Bridge at Wayne Junction on old Route 23, at the time, the longest streetcar route in North America, about 12 miles long, I believe it was. For some crazy reason, I decided to climb up on the abandoned Reading that went into Reading Terminal. After the rails were torn up, and just to get a shot of the old train shed. This was like a grab shot. I looked down the street, and this trolley was going by, and I just took a shot. At the time, it was like a throwaway shot. It was just it was there. I was there. I took it. But boy, I'm glad I took this shot because, of course, Route 23 no longer runs, and we're looking right down Race Street here. That's the Ben Franklin Bridge in the background. This shot's really grown on me over the years. Here we are on Route 10. And here we are at the Christian Schmidt Brewing Company building. This is located on Gerard Avenue, near 2nd Street. The brewery was built in 1914. It was closed in 1987, and at the time of its closing, it was the last brewery in Philadelphia. The building was eventually demolished in 2000. This is on a fan trip. You have 2 cars out, so it's a fan trip. This is heading west on Gerard Avenue. The 2129, the closest car to us here, is actually out on the Gerard Avenue Bridge with a trailing car ready to enter the bridge. There was a time you could do photo stops on the Gerard Avenue Bridge. Traffic is so crazy there now, you couldn't even think about it. This is at Gerard College. This is on Corinthian Street. Favorite photo stop location, that's the Gerard College Library in the background. Corinthian Avenue, actually. And once again, that's Gerard College forming the backdrop for this shot here. This is on the Route 15, currently out of service, but there will be a time in the next 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 years when you'll be able to get the PCCs rolling down these tracks again. Also on Gerard Avenue, a couple of the PCCs passing each other. This is up at the Germantown Depot, north end of Route 23, not quite the far north end, but close to it. These cars are actually all sitting on concrete, not on tracks. These were the cars that were pulled out of service and eventually wound up at Brookville Equipment out in Brookville, PA, and became the PCC2s that were and will be again in service on Gerard Avenue. This is on Route 23, right in Center City. That's Reading Terminal off to the right-hand side there. The fun thing was SEPTA closed Route 23 as well as Route 56 and put them on temporary busing. And I use quotes for temporary. They put them on temporary busing. But even after the buses started running, the power stayed on the lines, and you could run fan trips on the line still. In fact, the fan trips helped SEPTA justify keeping the tracks in place in the street and things like that. So for a couple of years after the temporary busing began, we could still run fan trips the entire length of the 23. It was pretty impressive. This is the Canoe Eastern Press Building. This is on Route 56 on Erie Avenue. Canoe built the building in 1929 and printed a lot of the Hearst publications here. Canoe closed in 1974, but this building has since been repurposed for other uses and is still there. Unfortunately, Route 56 is not still there. We're back in Center City again on the 23. Pay no mind to the roll sign. Route 20 was long gone by the time this shot was taken. This is on a fan trip. There's our car 2168 again. And this is from a fan trip. This is actually the last day of Route 6 operation on January 11th, 1986. The 20 was eventually combined with Route 23. Speaking of Route 23, we're up at the far north end here. This is up in Chestnut Hill. The only place, I won't say that. one of the few places where the city streetcars left Philadelphia proper. They might have left at Olney as well. I can't remember if that was in the city limits or not. A well-battered 2502 on Route 23, splashing through the puddles at Broad and Erie. This is from that 1981. It was taken during the 1981 ERA convention. We had stopped here for some reason. And this is a regular service car that came by. It was a wet day that day. Once again, you have 2168. This is on the last day of Route 6 operations. This is coming off Old York Road and onto Champlost Avenue on January 11th, 1986. SEPTA for a short time had a historic fleet. They kept a few streetcars painted in unusual paint schemes. 2054 was in the PTC silver. Here we see it downtown on Route 23. And here it is on a fan trip, as the roll sign says, 50 years of PCC cars in Philadelphia. Sadly, Philadelphia didn't keep its historic fleet. It was a lot of fun, good for charters, and a lot of cities have done similar things. The 2799 was painted in the Red Arrow scheme, even though Red Arrow never owned PCC cars. And here we see a two-car charter with 2728 in PTC silver, with the 2799 in Red Arrow trailing. And 2799 going underneath the Market-Frankford L at Gerard Avenue. For a short time, SEPTA ran the Chestnut Hill Trolley out of Chestnut Hill on the north end of Route 23. They painted a handful of cars in a lighter green for that service. Also had this darker green with the buff 2732 as part of the unofficial historic fleet going through Temple University. And here we are going past the Hood Cemetery on Germantown, on the 23. And going past the Mount Moriah Cemetery. Here's one of the Chestnut Hill cars out on a fan trip. This is at the far south end of Route 23, down at Bigler Street. And the 2799 meeting a regular service Kawasaki car. Two-car charter again, 2799, with the green car in the background. And the 2732 out on a night photo charter. Back at Mount Moriah, this time we're in the cemetery looking out. What was a lot of fun was sometimes they ran multiple PCCs on fan trips. During the 1981 ERA convention, they did a three-car charter that included the training trolley. That's the training trolley on the right-hand side there. This is at the terminal bar at the north end of Route 6. And here we see all three of our trolleys stretched out. The training trolley leading a standard SEPTA general overhaul car in the white with red and blue, and then one of the Bicentennial cars bringing up the rear. Then on the last day of Route 6, they had a three-car set out as well. Silver 2054, Gulf Oil 2168, and a regular white with red and blue. Some cool stuff. For a short time, there was the Peter Witt 8534 was in the unofficial historic fleet as well, available for charters. This car is now up in Scranton. Richard Weibel, great guy. He was the operator of the Peter Witt on most of the fan trips, if not all of them. When you're out on a fan trip, you can't block a regular service car. That's one of the rules. You got to. So here we are getting our last shots as fast as we can to run back onto the Peter Witt because the regular service car has caught us from behind. Up on the end of the 34 on Baltimore. And the PCC2s, which ran on Route 15 for many years and were semi-recently taken out of service to be rebuilt. Here we see a set, three of them up at Tallow Hill, where they were based out of. This is on Richmond Street. This section went out of service first for the I-95 reconstruction project. This building in the background here, I forget what it was. I got to look it up. I'm still working on this section of the book. Religious building of some sort. Anyhow, a developer came in and promised to save the facade of the building and incorporate it in whatever new construction they were going to do. This is the same building. Unfortunately, the building was completely demolished, and I think it's still an empty lot here. And back at Gerard College. And this is out on the western end of the Route 15. Once again, we've had a lot of charters with the PCC2s, both the Wilmington chapter as well as the Friends of Philadelphia Trolleys. Great way to get a lot of photos in a semi-controlled environment. You can wait for traffic to clear and stuff like that. This is the last night of PCC2 operation before Route 15 was shut down for its most recent I-95 reconstruction project, and they're also doing work on the line itself. This is on Gerard with the Market-Frankford L going overhead. This is out where Route 10 and Route 15 cross. You got the PCC2. It'll make the zigzag here to stay on Route 15. You got a Route 10 trolley coming up on the right-hand side there, and he'll continue straight off the left edge of the frame here. And of course, you got to have a cheesesteak shot in a Philly program. We got Joe's Steaks here on Gerard Avenue. SEPTA encourages its operators to decorate their streetcars for the holidays. Thus, we get a lot of Christmas trolleys roaming around. Here we see one of the Christmas trolleys at the Darby station. Here's two of them together at Elmwood. This is at the Gables Bed and Breakfast on Route 13. And the $27.99 in red arrow paint, decorated. going by a Christmas tree lot. And once again, two of the decorated cars together. You see our streetcar reflected in the windows on the right there on the diversion trackage on Filbert Street. And Gary Mason, operator for SEPTA, he decorates cars every year. In fact, he's probably the guy who really got it going. Here we see Gary at the controls of a Kawasaki car that he decorated. Notice the Christmas village up on the dashboard. And we're in the Center City Tunnel. And once again, back at Gables. SEPTA wrapped Kawasaki car 9043 to celebrate 125 years of electrified streetcar service in Philadelphia. And we have a few scenes here of the 9043 and its wrap. In the tunnel under Center City at 13th Street. Once again, on fan trips, pay no attention to the destination signs. They could say almost anything. They don't even have to say Philadelphia destinations. They can say Toronto destinations, San Francisco. We have a lot of fun with the destination signs on these fan trips. Atlantic City line train going overhead. This is at the zoo on Gerard Avenue. Once again, Route 40 doesn't exist anymore, but fun with destination signs. This is how Gables Bed and Breakfast looks when it's not Christmas. It's getting a bit grown in. I'm not sure they'd appreciate it if we went in there and took out their trees and bushes. And the last true PCC on the SEPTA roster, not rebuilt by Brookville, is the 2194, which is a work car. And once again, SEPTA has allowed us to charter this car and take it out just for pictures on fan trips. Here we see the work car with our rider PCC2 trailing behind on Gerard Avenue. And back near Gerard College again. Going to wrap things up here with a few odds and ends. The Penn's Landing Trolley. Great operation. Should have been a city gem, and the city never cooperated. They packed up and went to Scranton. This is a really cool operation out on the waterfront. Here we see car 76 arriving on the property. Ben Franklin Bridge overhead. And this is a view from the Ben Franklin Bridge looking south on Delaware Avenue, now Christopher Columbus Boulevard. A couple of the historic cars are out. And an old Philadelphia and Western car. Some cars have been scattered in their post-SEPTA days. A bunch of SEPTA PCCs wound up in San Francisco. And of the bunch, 3 of them actually wound up back in Philadelphia paint. Here we see one of the cars in front of the Ferry Building in San Francisco. painted in the PTC green and cream. And one in the PTC silver. Two of them got the silver. One of them was involved in an accident and got wrecked. I believe this one here was the wrecked car. And here's the other PTC silver car that's out in San Francisco. There's a Stratford car in New York State running at the New York Transportation Museum near Rochester. Car 161. They have two Stratford cars there. The Baltimore Streetcar Museum now has 2168. Resplendent in its Gulf oil livery. Rock Hill Trolley Museum's got a variety of things, including an electroliner, a bullet, a PCC, and several other pieces of equipment from Philadelphia. Up in Scranton, Electric City Trolley has this Stratford car that wound up back in Pennsylvania after heading out to the Midwest for many years. And car 80, we saw that earlier on Delaware Avenue as part of the Penn's Landing trolley. Here it is coming out of the Crown Avenue tunnel in Scranton. And of course, the Pennsylvania Trolley Museum has a variety of Philadelphia equipment. So that's going to wrap things up now. Now it's time for the infomercial, right? Right. Here's how the book's going to wind up looking. This is a sample spread here. It's actually 2 pages side by side. This is the Sharon Hill section. When I initially plotted the book, it was going to be 100 pages, somewhere north of 200 photos. And it was going to go for $44. Well, a few weeks ago, I sat down and said, okay, I'm almost done with the book. What else needs to go in here? I started making a list. There was a ton of stuff I still wanted to get into the book. So I'm only going to do this once. So I thought, I'll just make the book bigger then. So it's now 120 pages. It'll go for $49. However, I have been having a pre-publication sale, and this will last until May 1st. Even with the price increase that I'm going to be doing come May 1st, the pre-publication sale is still only $39 plus $4 shipping. You can get this off of my website, www.railroadphotographer.com/books. You can also get my South Jersey book there. This price is good until May 1st, and then it's going to go up to the $49. Stop on by, grab a copy, and you can read some more about all of these photos. With that is going to wrap things up for me. Let me unshare my screen here, and we shall carry. Got to find.
That's okay. I can take over the share here. Yeah.
There you go. Okay.
Okay. So I'm sorry, everybody, about my slide issue at the beginning of the program here, but thank you so much, Steve. We're going to let everybody unmute in just a second here. Steve, feel free to take a look through the chat, and I will send you that at the end because people had lots of comments and commentary. So I'll send you the transcript of the chat. But just a second here, I want to let everybody see the slides that I neglected to show earlier. Hopefully you guys can see them now. I mentioned our Trolley Street was getting underway and some construction and foundations at our new building. And then I did want to mention we've got a couple other Trolleyologies coming up. We have, I'm not sure what the title is going to be, but it's going to be a Cleveland PCC fan trip presentation from Rich Krisak, who is here tonight. And then also David Woolwill is here tonight. He's going to do a program on Port Authority's electric bus fleet. So, and again, the West Penn Trolley Meet June 3rd and 4th, and anything on wheels June 4th and 5th. Thank you guys again for joining us, and thanks again to those who donated. Let me get everybody unmuted here. So you should be allowed to unmute yourself now if you like. Also, feel free to turn on your video. If you are having trouble turning on your video, just let me know. I see Philip has the bunny in the background of his video there. Excellent. All right. So thank you again, Steve. That was awesome. There was like a very active chat during this program with people sharing memories and cars they've operated and lots of different stuff. So does anybody have any questions for Steve? Let me take a look at the chat too here. Lots of good comments coming in.
This is Paul. I don't have any questions, but I do have some information for you guys to know about. A couple of years ago, I was at the Middletown and Hummelstown. I saw a couple of PCCs still there at the Middletown and Hummelstown Railroad with two SEPTA CTA cars still there. I think they're still there. I haven't been back there for a while, but I remember I did get pictures of what I could of what they had. I think they were trying to restore one of them at the time.
Excellent. And then I did put a link to Steve's website, the railroadphotographer.com/books in the chat. So feel free to click on that and get that pre-order in. Let's see. Yeah, feel free to jump in if you have any questions.
Were any of the SEPTA historic fleet saved? Or what became of them, I guess is what I should say.
Good question.
I know they lost the Hog Island car in the fire. They lost that one. That was the only. It was a 5,000 series.
The silver air car is at Scranton, I believe.
Scranton, yeah, that's
okay.
up there. Yeah,
it's there, and so is 8534.
Yes.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's sitting outside.
Yeah.
I don't know where the 2799 wound up, if that's still in existence or not. The Red Arrow BCC.
Steve, great program. Thank you very much. I had a question. What's the status of chartering cars in Philly right now? Is it suspended, or have they resumed allowing folks to charter?
No, you can charter them. I just chartered they got a Kawasaki car right now wrapped for the 40th anniversary of the Elmwood district, which I just chartered for the Wilmington chapter back in February. So charters are still very much doable in SEPTA.
How much is it?
Oh gosh, we did a 5-hour charter, which is a little bit on the long side for most people. We do a lot of photo stops though. I think our 5 hours cost us around $1,700. It's a bit of a sliding scale. The first couple of hours are more expensive, and then the price goes down a little bit per hour for every hour over 2.
And Steve, you mentioned the Super Saturday charters. Is that
Yes.
How long has that been running?
The one we ran in February was my 28th Super Saturday charter. We started them back in the early 90s. We did the first one, then we skipped 2 years because I never dreamed it would become a series. And then we did a second one, and then ever since then, other than the COVID year, we've done them every year ever since then. And we've done 2 out on Red Arrow. We've done a bunch of them with PCCs. In fact, we've had one of the cars we've used it as both a standard PCC and as a rebuilt Brookville PCC too. It went out to Brookville, got rebuilt, came back, we used it again. It was one of the Chestnut Hill cars. Every year on the day before the Super Bowl, we run that charter.
Great. Well, I just want to invite you back to do a program on that someday too. I know you mentioned that was something you might be interested in. So hopefully we'll have Steve back to do a program on that. There were a lot of comments on the photo with, I think it was near a gas station, and everyone was reminiscing about the low prices of gas.
I have a vague recollection that there was the first K car on the line to Media had trolley poles. Am I right? Before it had pantographs.
That's entirely possible. I would need to go back and look at the photos. don't know if I have one here handy or not to see if. So I know we ran a Kawasaki car out there on a fan trip before they were in regular service. We actually had it mixed in with the Brills and the St. Louis cars, and I don't remember if that had a pantograph or if that had a trolley pole. That's a good question.
I thought they had it. I thought they modified the. I dropped the wire down.
They did.
That.
They did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have that shot quite handy here. So
I never saw a picture of one with a trolley pole. Never. And I live right not too far from the Sharon Hill line.
Steve, another good show.
Thanks.
I do remember when Boeing was building the cars for Boston. The original ones had the test car, and the original ones that went to Boston had a couple of them had trolley poles. Because I remember the test track on 291. Yeah. And then a friend of mine worked for Boeing, and he rode those. He was an engineer up there and rode the cars, and they were running with a trolley pole.
My father worked for Vertol on that project, and basically when the Vietnam War wound down and they didn't need as many tandem rotor helicopters, he was told to find another gig, and he found that and worked on the streetcar, the standard, what was it, UMTA's standard light rail vehicle or something.
Well, the funny one they had was the test car for that was going to be used in the subway. I don't know if you ever remember that thing, but I remember it broke loose and it ran across 291 all by itself and coasted across the street. I remember that sitting in the middle of 291. And then when they were building the septic cars, we were in there with the fire department, and they wouldn't let us anywhere near the septic cars. And I think at the time they were having a problem with Boston with the Boeing cars.
Yeah.
Boston was never happy with the Boeing cars.
And some of theirs ended up in San Francisco.
Yeah, they did. Some of them, that's right. The last ones ended up in San Francisco.
Yeah.
Boeing refused to take them. Boston refused to take them. But I know when we went in the plant there. It's the old General Steel plant that used to make the steel castings for Baldwin's. When we went in there, they were kind of like, you can't go anywhere near the septic cars.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, San Francisco watched all of the Boston failures, and they got the modifications put into their cars before they were delivered to Frisco.
It might have been, George, because I remember the Boston cars all sitting in the yard down there. I live. The next street south of me is Baldwin Avenue, and the street after that, Chinook Drive. That's how close I am to Baldwin's, to Boeing. All right, so.
I found a shot of the 100 on that fan trip back in '81, and it had a pantograph at the time. So.
There was some discussion about the decorated trolleys. So
yes.
How does that work? Like once you decorate the trolley, is that yours to operate for the season, or how does that work?
Apparently so. Apparently the operators for the decorated cars get assigned that car, and they control it pretty much for the season. I don't even think they're out on the shifts that the operator isn't assigned to. I think they sit in the barn during those shifts.
Sometimes.
Gary, sometimes? Okay.
Yeah, sometimes. But usually they sit in the depot.
Okay. And but I'm not sure if Gary Mason was the one who started it or if he just popularized it. But now SEPTA actually encourages their operators to decorate the cars. You'll find them decorated for Christmas, for Valentine's Day, for Easter, for Halloween. And I believe they even have awards now they give to the best decorated streetcar to their operators. So.
Oh, that's great. I've seen the buses decorated too.
I thought it was originally just Gary, but now, like when Gary's at Callow Hill with his car, Elmwood usually has a car out as well.
We had a PCC 2 or PCC, one. Anyhow, we had a car out with us that was decorated. It was a PCC, I think, and for a night photo trip with decorated with the Christmas lights on it. And we got to the portal at 40th Street, And darn if a Kawasaki car that somebody had decorated didn't pull up while we were there. And we asked the operator if he could pause the car next to ours for a few minutes for some photos. And he jumps up and gets on his speaker and tells everybody on the car they have to transfer to another car at 40th Street so he can leave it parked there for us for pictures.
Wow. That's a great story.
I know the cars that I decorate. I'm the only operator, but they're all HO.
Oh, well.
Great. Do we have any other questions or comments for Steve?
Steve, this is Hugh. You know, I don't know if it's just me, but that N5 car looks stone cold ugly.
Well,
is there a story behind that, or is it just what you see is what you get?
No, it was actually intentionally designed that way. And a guy who was a mutual friend of mine actually did the designs on it. I'm afraid to mention his name now since you don't like the car. But he actually designed the sloping nose on the cars as a bit of a tribute to the Bullitt cars.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have to agree, Hugh, with you, though. I think they're not very pretty. None of them are. But they're also looking at the expense of designing something with rounded roofs and rounded fronts. And it's so much easier to put things with squares on them.
Well, yeah. It looks like
that's why they do that.
It's like a stealth plane or something, you know. It won't reflect radar very well.
Does anybody know how they made out with the two that the one ran into the other one at 69th Street that night?
I heard they were still out for investigation.
But did they repair them? They repair them?
I don't know, but they haven't. I heard they haven't been back in service though.
I know our guys had to go up there on an ambulance box alarm. They pulled in a lot of ambulances. I know.
Yeah, the National Transportation Safety Board last fall, or very close to Christmas, issued, I believe, their final report, and they talked about slippery rails and they talked about fog, and they really didn't charge anybody with anything.
And also
environmental conditions just weren't good, and the car had what they called intermittent brake issues. So what they mean is, I think, is they really don't know what the hell happened to the car. But it had done this apparently several times on the inbound trip before that final approach to 69th Street.
Does everybody remember the bear? What? The bear they found on the tracks?
I saw you mention that in the chat, Ray.
Well, a few years right there in Haverford, a few years in Haverford Township, a few years ago, people were reporting that they were seeing a bear. So after so many calls came into the police, they're going, yeah, okay, yeah, it's a bear. All right, okay. And next thing you know, they found the bear dead on the P&W or the P&W tracks. P&W was the Philadelphia Western. They used to call it the pig and whistle. For anybody that's older to remember. A friend of I worked with a guy in the refinery who was we were still operators. This is back in the 60s, and he was an operator on the Norristown line, and he was coming down one night by Villanova, and he noticed that a car's coming at him, and he noticed the headlights getting brighter and brighter, and at that point he said, it looks like we're going to have a head-on collision. He threw on the brakes and got up and he slid up to a mirror. The students at Villanova put a mirror on the tracks.
Oh gosh.
Oh,
so believe it or not, I always asked Larry if he was part of that because Larry went to Villanova.
Well, Ray, that bear, did it get electrocuted or was it hit?
Apparently it did. It was dead. So that's what I figured. That's what they figured. He got electrocuted. He got a hold of the third rail. But it was funny because it was like the biggest joke around in Delaware County. Oh yeah, the bear in Haverford, you know. The next thing you know, they found out people weren't kidding. They weren't lying.
Yeah.
Every now and then we get some crazy thing. Like right now, we're going out. We're going nuts with deer down here.
I didn't mention that
because they can't shoot.
You know, up where I live, where the Laura line had uncovered third rail, it was a constant problem with cows on the tracks. And
Yeah.
you get into newspapers.com, you won't see roast bear, but you're going to see roast beef in a number of the newspaper headlines.
Steve, this is Hugh. One more question.
Certainly.
And again, a wonderful presentation. I
Thanks.
love the photographs and everything. Can't wait for your book to come out, quite frankly. But my question is this, is that while there's been a lot of equipment that has been preserved, particularly at the Pennsylvania Trolley Museum, I wonder about things like the Red Arrow. When they first constructed it, they had a fleet of cars that looked like interurban cars in the traditional sense, with the big arch windows and everything.
The Jewetts.
The Jewetts. Are they? Is there any example of that anywhere?
I don't believe so.
Yeah, I don't.
Some of them ran through World War II, and I'm sure that as soon as the new stuff showed up, they got rid of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then also I think about I was in Philly before the Almond Joys arrived, and which I think was around 1962.
I believe that's right. Yes.
So there was equipment before then, and I don't know what you all call them, but I kind of wonder if any of that's preserved anywhere.
No, they all got scrapped. Well, there were 2 or 3 that were left as trash cars, and they were sold to a New England museum, and that was a year they had a very intensive flooding in New England, and they just couldn't get their truck down there in time, except they had basically given them a date, and they scrapped those cars, and it made very bad press nationally. That this
there was about 4 or 5 of them down at 69th Street in the early 80s, and PTM was trying to get one of them, and his scrapper bought him, who's scrapper in rail fans clothing, and he ended up scrapping it, and all we got was parts. None of them got saved. There was 4 or 5 of them down there.
Wow.
Yeah,
But
that's changed. If I'm not mistaken, SEPTA now asks museums first if they want equipment before they send them out to get junked.
Yeah, on the Market-Frankford line, there were 2 types of cars before the Almond Joys.
Right.
The original 1907 market cars with railroad roofs, and in 1922, when the Frankfurt line opened, they got additional cars with arch roofs. And I think the last cars around were all Frankfurt cars.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
You are right. Yes.
By the time the Almond Joys came, though, Alan, they had to be shot. Those cars.
Oh yes.
They were shot.
But it was in July 1960 that the Almond Joys first appeared, and in 6 months, all the Almond Joys were in service. By contrast, when the M4s came, it took them about 2 or 3 years to build them all.
Still had problems.
and SEPTA can't wait to get rid of them.
They still got problems.
Yeah, they do.
They have a lot of problems. Yeah.
Live a block away from them. Can't stand them.
All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us. Unless there are any other questions for Steve, last call.
Well,
Go ahead. Sorry.
Sort of on the side, the trolley, Western Pennsylvania trolley meet. Is there a link for signing up and for hotel and all that sort of thing?
Yes, on the patrolley.org website, navigate to, there's a special events tab. I think it's events and programs, but if you click on that, it'll get you to the link for West Penn Trolley Meet. We have 2 hotels that we're working with, the Hampton Inn on Racetrack Road, and also the Microtel, which is, I think, the closest hotel to the museum. And actually, they're given a great rate of $60 a night. So they're really easy to work with, and they should have plenty of room still. So check out the patrolley.org website, Philip, and anybody else interested in coming. If you're a member of the Pennsylvania Trolley Museum, it's free. And if you're just attending and you're not a member, it's regular admission prices. And we also have a 2-day pass and a 3-day pass. The 3-day pass does not include the shop tour. So that's a separate registration that you can also find on the website. I think it's $15 for members and $20 for non-members. But that'll be really neat because we haven't done a West Penn trolley meet in person since 2018. And, a lot of the meets over the past couple of years have been canceled. So we're really excited to do something in person and see everybody again. So thank you for that great last question, Philip. We're going to wrap it up there. Thank you again to Steve for sharing. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And again, if you have an idea for Trolleyology, feel free to reach out to me at the email address in the confirmation email that you got tonight. We hope you can join us in future weeks and months on Zoom or in person. Thanks again, and have a wonderful week, everybody. Good night.
Thanks, Chris.
Good night. Thank you very much.
Bye.